Hi class, and welcome to the second mini lecture on advertising and consumer culture. In this section, we're going to discuss about selling American diversity and Muslim American identity through nonprofit advertising post 9/11. All right, so let's begin with the first slide. So, what is the issue? What is the background or the context that made the author of this journal article interested in examining this issue? So, the notions of who counted as an American shifted after the attack of 9/11. So, the September 9/11 attacks were a series of 4 attacks done by the Islamic extremist group called Al-Qaeda, and they hijacked 4 airplanes, and 2 of those airplanes were flown into the World Trade Center in New York City. A 3rd plane hit the Pentagon just outside Washington, D.C., and the 4th plane crashed in a field in Shankfield, Pennsylvania, and almost 3,000 people died because of those attacks. So, what happened after that horrible incident was that there is this shift in, like what the author said, this idea of who is an American and what kind of values do they represent. So the government's practice of detaining, deporting, and profiling those who appear to be Arab, Middle Eastern, or Muslim mark these identities as suspect and therefore considered as un-American. And what we see here is that the government and media discourses relied on old Orientalist ideas developed by Dr. Edward Said, who believed that the Western civilization as more developed and modern, whereas the Eastern civilization is considered as backwards. So these Orientalist ideas position American national identity as democratic, modern, and free, and the Middle East as primitive, barbaric, and oppressive. So what is the purpose of this journal article? The author wants to examine how nonprofit advertising participated in refiguring an imagined American community after 9/11. So in this article, the author compares 3 advertising campaigns: the Ads Council's I Am an American, the Council on American Islamic Relations, or CAIR, I Am an American Muslim, and the U.S. Department of State's Shared Values Initiative. So what did the author find in examining these ads? I have uploaded the PowerPoint slides on your module for this week. So if you open the PowerPoint slides and then you click on the blue link, then you will be able to see the campaign of I Am an American, which clearly aimed to produce a more inclusive framework for American citizenship. Yet through a process of selection, elimination, and representations, these public service announcements participate in the formation of a particularly exclusionary version of diversity that requires individuals to approximate a patriotic sameness in order to gain access to cultural citizenship. So what the author means by this is that there are certain categories, certain types of identities of Muslim that are accepted and that are being represented in these advertisements. And so these advertisements showcase the convergence of a variety of discourses of diversity, of service to the nation, and Muslim and American shared values. So the highlights of these Muslim and American shared values become something that they are selling to the public, and they chose Muslims who are educated, professional, and involved in politics to represent their ideas of what is acceptable as a Muslim in America. And of course, these kind of categories, these kind of selections, eliminations, and representations make the people who do not fall into that mold labeled as un-American. And what the author is saying is that these efforts erase cultural differences and exclude non-citizens. So another point that the author also finds is this, in addition to the two campaigns, the US government, through the Department of States and CAMU, or the Council of American Muslims Understandings, created after 9/11 and funded by the State Department, spent $15 million on the Shared Values Initiative. So if the previous two advertisements or two campaigns were marketed towards American citizens, now this campaign is actually marketed towards people who live outside the United States, people who are non-citizens, people who are citizens of Muslim or countries. And the campaign included videos, newspapers, ads, and radio spots. The US media dubbed the advertisements as the Muslims as Apple Pie campaign, because these ads seek to demonstrate to Muslims abroad that Muslims in the US live prosperous lives, free of harassments, and therefore there is no need to hate the United States. So one of the reasons why this campaign was very important and sponsored by the US Department of State is because they're trying to paint a picture that America is a country that embraces Muslim into their, as part of their citizens. So they want to make sure that there's no more hatred or tensions between America and other Muslim countries. So the US Shared Values campaign emphasizes that Muslims are recent immigrants and are treated fairly in a country in which they are foreigners, while the CARE ads emphasize that Muslims are not recent immigrants and therefore are part of the American nation. So you can see how these two messages were clashing. The messages are similar, but the differences in target audience mean that the messages negate each other. So many critics responded to the US government public relation campaign with questions as to how it could believe that a media campaign would solve problems rooted in foreign policy. And this is the side where I think it's going to be very interesting for you to think about, especially for those of you who minor or major in media studies. So it is not unusual, according to the author, for the rhetoric of diversity to be mobilized during times in which the US is least multicultural, or rather most discriminatory. So in order to cover actual racist policies and practices. And while these ads may not stop hate crimes against Arabs, Muslims, and South Asians, they did potentially contribute to a diverse imagined American community. Now, that is actually the end of my short lecture, and I want to wrap this session by asking you these 4 questions. So these are the lecture check questions that I want you to think about, and maybe you will also be able to participate in a discussion that answer these questions. So the number 1 question that I want you to think about is, how did the government use advertisements to shape the image of Muslim in America post 9/11? And then the second one, what kind of American diversity and Muslim identity are being sold in the 3 advertising campaigns? Do you think the government's efforts can be considered as propaganda? Think back to the first few weeks of the semester where we discussed the concept of propaganda. So what is the answer? Yes or no? Why or why not? And then the last one is, why do you think the State Department was willing to spend $15 million to create Shared Values Initiative? All right, I hope those 4 questions help you to think through this reading material and help you understand what is being discussed here. All right, thank you and good luck.